clearancejobs.com. Thank you for joining me for a live update about our state of the security clearance white paper. If you have not noticed or heard, over at clearancejobs.com, we release a white paper every month about a different topic. In July, it is my favorite topic, one that is near and dear to my heart. It is all about security clearances, security clearance processing times, state of the security clearance process, security clearance hot topics. So if you have any questions about the security clearance process, this is the white paper for you. So definitely check it out. If you go to the comments here, if you check out in the description that was posted with this video update, you will see a link to download the white paper. Again, that is our state of the security clearance process white paper. The second time we've done this update this year, we did our first state of the security clearance process update in January. All the news that was fit to print in January, we were doing that update again. We do it twice a year because basically things in the security clearance process, believe it or not, do change. And they do change more than twice a year, actually. We try to provide at least quarterly updates about things like clearance processing times. But again, this twice a year update really is kind of a meaty overview of the security clearance process. So some of the things you find in that white paper are current security clearance processing times. Those are 130 days for a DoD industry top secret clearance and 102 days for a DoD industry secret clearance. For the intelligence community, that is a little bit longer. It's 257 days and 196 days, respectively. So you can get clearance processing times updates. We also have information about what are some of the top causes. We're saying causes, reasons for security clearance denial and revocation. Financial issues far and above cause a lot of the security clearance denials and revocations. And yes, if you have questions, thank you for joining us, live viewers. I would love to provide information, updates to your questions. So we had a question about how to actually get a security clearance. Yes, you've come to the right place. If you actually search, we have how to obtain a security clearance. That's an article over at clearancejobs.com. You have to be sponsored. So we had somebody chime in there. If you have been sponsored by an employer, or if you're a service member sponsored by the government, that is how you get a security clearance. Obviously, on clearancejobs.com, you can search for our more than 70,000 job listings for cleared positions. But if you're searching for those positions and you don't have a clearance, one criteria that I always say is like search for willing to obtain clearances. We had a great conversation recently with GDIT and their security director over there, and she said that they are really working really hard to help folks who want to work in this space to obtain and get clearances. So there's a lot that can be done in terms of sponsoring security clearances. If you don't currently have one, there's a lot you can do. Yes, the hiring managers are commenting on the threads as we would expect them to do, saying they would be delighted to help sponsor you for a security clearance. I'm also getting some shout outs for the DoD Skill Bridge program. Saying it's amazing. And so if you have, again, if you're in the military and are looking to transition, shout out to DoD Skill Bridge. That is a great way to transition and get a position. Talking about interim clearances, that's something that's worth noting. We recently talked about this over at Clearance Jobs. Interim clearance processing times way faster. So the process to get an interim security clearance could take a month, upwards of that, more. It still certainly can for some cases, but a lot of interim clearances, DoD is saying their average interim clearance processing time is just 7 days. So an interim clearance, again, is not a final clearance determination, but it's a temporary clearance, basically, that allows you to do cleared work while you're waiting your final determination to get done. So an interim security clearance is a great step. And again, we're hearing from a lot of employers, because clearance processing times have improved so much, there are a lot more employers who are willing to go out there and sponsor you for a security clearance. So again, this is Lindy Kaiser. I'm the Director of Content with clearancejobs.com, here today to talk about our State of the Security Clearance Process white paper. You can link to it in the description with this video update. Definitely download that white paper, get all of the information that we have in there about the security clearance process. If you have questions about clearance processing times, top causes of clearance denial and revocation, and security clearance hot topics, that's always one of my favorite topics to talk about. We are talking about marijuana, and we're also talking about mental health in our security clearance white paper. So we get a ton of questions about that. Spoiler, go to clearancejobs.com, news.clearancejobs.com today. I am going to post a riveting story about someone who did drugs while they had a security clearance and they were able to keep their clearance. we've been kind of waiting for this to happen. ODNI, they've said that policy, they are trying to look to change it. They don't want to be penalizing folks who made a mistake in a state where it was legal, and are have issues with the process. They are trying to apply the whole person concept to drug use. For a long time, drug use was really one of those, if you screw up once, you're done. I mean, it was a hard stop. That I think a lot of service members were getting dinged this process. A lot of folks who simply were not aware were getting penalized by this process. And ODNI is trying to say, like, we do see this societal shift happening around marijuana use. Is it really an issue of reliability and trustworthiness? It's going to cause somebody to give up classified information, which is really what they're concerned about. They want people who can follow rules, obviously, but they don't want the process to be penalizing the wrong people. But we talk about drug use and your security clearance in the white paper, and we talk about it in a ton of content and articles over at clearancejobs.com, because when you say drugs, or you're talking about marijuana, I mean, marijuana is the drug in case that I'm talking about here. But when it comes to drug use and security clearances, they are specifically looking at, because states have legalized marijuana, it is tripping up, quote unquote, more applicants coming into it who have said they have done drugs in a state where it was legal, still illegal under federal law, still a total no-go if you have a current clearance, but it can be mitigated. And you really just have to apply the whole person concept in your favor to show how this was a temporary lapse, how you had an issue, what was going on. And yeah, if it's other drugs, we talk about prescription drugs in your security clearance over at clearancejobs.com. Drug use can involve a lot of things. Where the government is trying to kind of loosen and apply the whole person concept is specifically around the marijuana use, just because it's because of the state laws around it and the confusion there. Now they're trying to educate and say, hey, federal law has not changed, so you absolutely cannot use drugs if you have a clearance. But if you're someone who's applying for a security clearance and you were simply not aware of that process, they don't want to ding you for that. So we're talking about marijuana. We're also talking about mental health. We've had a lot of content about mental health and security clearances over at Clearance Jobs, DCSA, ODNI, across government. GDIT just had a great event with the Intelligence and National Security Alliance talking about the issue of mental health and security clearances. There's a big push right now saying, hey, we kind of anticipate this mental health, post-pandemic issue. A lot of folks are struggling with mental health issues. The national security community, the military, if you work in government, you should not be using your national security position as an excuse not to pursue mental health treatment. Being proactive is actually the best way to mitigate any issues, and refusing to get treatment is quite simply the worst thing you could possibly do. So simply do not fail to get mental health treatment because you are concerned about your security clearance. Failure to get treatment will actually be a bigger issue for your security clearance than being proactive and going out and getting help. So mental health and security clearances, DCSA, ODNI, a lot of the employers across the defense industry are really pushing and trying to educate about mental health and security clearances, and why you shouldn't let any mental health issues prevent you from getting treatment. So again, we talk about those security clearance hot topics over at clearancejobs.com. I love your questions coming in. Thank you so much to Katie Keller, our content marketing manager, who is on the chat thread helping you out. So salute to Katie for responding to all of those questions that I can't get to. If you have questions about the clearance process, always hit us up at clearancejobs.com. We want to make the reporting that we give and provide for you better. We are constantly writing about the security clearance process over at clearancejobs.com. We have a ton of news and articles and content and information. And again, what I'm talking about today is our most recent State of the Security Clearance Process white paper that we did release this month, that you can download with the link there. It has clearance processing times, it has clearance hot topics, it has top cause of clearance denial, as the security clearance eligibility, and the ineligible and inaccess population, which I'm probably the only nerdy person who cares about those types of things, but maybe you do. And if that is you, you can download that part of the white paper. But across the full white paper, whether you are a security clearance applicant, whether you are a recruiter, a hiring manager, a small business, a large business, there is information, there is news you can use in our most recent State of the Security Clearance Process white paper. And so, yeah, talking about continuous vetting, somebody mentioned that. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Thank you for bringing up continuous vetting. We talk about Trusted Workforce 2.0 and the continuous vetting enrollment. They have reached full enrollment across the security clearance population in the Trusted Workforce 1.25 requirement. So every individual with a security clearance, yes, I'm looking at you. If you have a security clearance, you are under a continuous vetting solution. So your information is being continuously vetted. You most likely have a deferred periodic reinvestigation. And once we get full enrollment in the Trusted Workforce 1.5, as we roll into Trusted Workforce 2.0 requirements, we will see the complete replacement of those periodic reinvestigations. It's seamless to you. That process is seamless to the security clearance holder. That's a good thing. That's a sign that the process has not broken. I get a lot of questions now about transferring, obviously, clearance jobs. We get questions about moving in between positions, moving in and out of positions. If you have a security clearance and it's under continuous vetting, what the government has said thus far is that they are still holding to that 2 year. So if you had an eligibility with a security clearance under continuous vetting and you shift, we've gotten a lot of questions about skill bridge, about transitioning service members. You should still have a 2 year window to jump back into government service. You should be able to use programs though like DoD skill bridge where they want your active security clearance and want you to use that. So you can certainly search under the DoD Skill Bridge program for programs like that where they are willing to hold and keep your security clearance, because we know across the clearancejobs.com community, there are a lot of folks who want to keep that clearance going for you. So that's certainly a possibility. But if you used your GI Bill benefits, if you're hopping out of military service and back in, what are the rules? Right now, they're still saying 2 years. I heard that's under consideration, so it could change. Until I actually see the policy, though, I can't tell you anything different. Keep to that 2 year window. I've got some questions about how do I tell if my clearance is active? So your security clearance status, that's an article over at clearancejobs.com. You can check, Google how to search my security clearance status. If you currently are in a position that requires a clearance, your security officer can check that for you. If you are job hunting, I'm sure there are a myriad of recruiters and hiring managers who would be willing to check that clearance status for you as well. If you are outside of the process and are simply wondering the status of your security clearance, we write about how you can submit a Privacy Act request to get a copy of your background investigation. Yes, you can get all of the nitty-gritty, dirty, not so dirty details about your security clearance determination through a Privacy Act request. Only you can request that, so you can request your own background investigation information. Again, you have to submit a Privacy Act request. I always joked, and so you know who to send holiday cards to the next year. But I'm old. Nobody sends holiday cards anymore, so that doesn't apply. But that used to be the rule, we would say. So you can use that. And you can even see sometimes your investigator notes would be in there. So if you're wondering about your status, you can actually get, again, that full copy of your background investigation through a Privacy Act request. So a lot of comments in here about folks wanting a clearance. I certainly say search the positions at clearancejobs.com, even if you don't have a clearance and you're looking to get sponsored. Again, so many of our companies have told us right now that they are in a position to be able to sponsor for security clearances. So knowing who is hiring in your region, you can search by state, geography, location, you can search by job skills, all of that stuff. If you search for those positions over at clearancejobs.com, it gives you an idea of who's hiring in the targeted location, and that can be a great way to search for positions. Justin asks, why does everyone think a Q does not transfer to a TS? I don't know, Justin. Tell them they're wrong. We talk about reciprocity and mobility in our State of the Security Clearance Process white paper, which you can download over at clearancejobs.com. Those should transfer. And we see the reciprocity across the average reciprocity time to transfer a DoD clearance is 6 days, which is flipping amazing. If you remember when it used to take like 5 years. I mean, it didn't really take 5 years, but it used to take a long time, a lot longer. So that they're saying 6 days. I haven't, DoD, DCSA, I love you, DoD. DoD does the best job about releasing information to the public about this process. They could always do better. I always want more. It's who I am. I always want more. But they do a great job of releasing information. The other agencies are generally not releasing as much information. But what I have heard is that 6 days is not an anomaly. I mean, the IC is an anomaly. They are special. But 6 days is not an anomaly. That reciprocity times within a week, 2 weeks are starting to be standard across Department of Energy, Department of Defense, other agencies. So if you have a clearance and you're working for the Department of Energy, you should be able to transfer that to DHS, to DoD, across other agencies, even if, like somebody mentioned, you have that Q level clearance because the Atomic Energy Act is special. Atomic energy is special. They have their own clearance terms and terminology, but things should transfer. Hubert says you can get a copy of your background investigation, but it will be redacted under certain restrictions. Well, is it even a government document if there aren't some things redacted, Hubert? I mean, there might be some things redacted. You're probably not going to get everything, but you will get things that I was surprised you get things that you would not potentially think that you would get in your background investigation. So I think it's always worth, especially if you're outside of government and you're kind of thinking about, if you're one of those many folks on this thread who has said, hey, I've hopped out of military or government service, I would like to get sponsored or get back in again. Knowing what was on that previous investigation can really be, I say, all the information and tools you can have in your security clearance arsenal are good. Those are tools that you can apply to help you as you're applying and trying to get sponsored. Say, hey, I had a clearance. It was 10 years ago, but it was adjudicated. I had no issues in my background. I've been living a clean, healthy life since. I've not gone on any ski trips to Colorado and done anything I shouldn't do. Even if you did, though, you can still get clearance. You can read that article at Clearance Jobs. But having that information of what is in your past and your background, I think is certainly very helpful. Is there an age limit on getting a security clearance? So FBI special agent positions, there's some law enforcement positions that have age restrictions. The security clearance writ large is not, because the diversity of the security clearance field is huge. So we have blue collar, we have white collar, we have the gamut of every position you could possibly think of over at Clearance Jobs supporting that. I think, what is FBI? Where are you at? I took the FBI fitness test and they said I had 1 year left. You can, I had to do my push-ups. They said 36, the time 38 to be a special agent. The ship has sailed. I don't think I can become an FBI agent anymore. So depending on the positions, if you're looking to be a special agent in the FBI, but I think you can also get a waiver. So don't let your FBI dreams die. Same with military service. There are age restrictions on military service, but I know folks who have previously served and who have gone back into ready reserve, reserve, National Guard positions, even though they've been quote unquote outside the age limit. So if you have the right skill set, definitely just look into the position. For security clearance, again, writ large, no, because what we're talking about at Clearance Jobs, and if you want a position over at Clearance Jobs, we have, again, the spectrum of cleared positions. So you can search for a cleared positions at Clearance Jobs, and you're not getting into a very specific bucket. So I appreciate all the questions that we've had today. I love doing these, and I love seeing the questions you have. It always gets my wheels turning for new content. If you have, for most of the questions we've had pop up in the chat here, Katie has, again, been doing a fantastic job of answering those. But if you have other questions that came up that you didn't see the answer to, the answer is probably over at news.clearancejobs.com. And so you can look and search for articles and information at news.clearancejobs.com for all of this. And again, the stats, some of the numbers I've been talking about. If you have questions about reciprocity, clearance processing times, top causes of clearance denial and revocation, you can read all of that by downloading our most recent State of the Security Clearance Process report, released in July. So hot off the presses, check it out. Print off a copy if you want to. It has great information about the security clearance process. I had a question come in that I do want to answer because I didn't talk about remote work. I don't think we talked about remote work in this white paper per se. We did talk a little bit about, we're seeing the in-access population of folks with security clearances go down. So what that means is that we do have that effect of the hybrid and remote work situation. What we're seeing is that there is a smaller number of people who are eligible in access to cleared work every day. That said, national security work still needs you. There still are positions that you have to have, you have to be in a skiff, in a seat. We're seeing opportunities open up for more hybrid remote work positions. So there's just no one-size-fits-all answer to this response anymore. You can actually search. We have a drop-down search criteria within Clearance Jobs to search for remote work positions. But what I still hear, I just had a conversation earlier with somebody about working in the Pentagon. There's just kind of a work and a culture that you can't always be a part of in a remote work environment. There is something to the skiff life. I was just talking about this here. I work from home, and it's all fun and games until your toddler's screaming behind you. So there are benefits of working in an office. There is no one-size-fits-all job opportunity. They all come with challenges and issues. And regardless of the clear job you're looking for or you want, you can probably find it over at clearancejobs.com. So I appreciate everybody who joined me and who actually watched me talk 1,500 miles a minute today about the security clearance process. Again, if you have questions about the security clearance process, we have the answers over at clearancejobs.com.